Hey everyone, Twana Michelle here, narcissistic abuse recovery coach, mental health therapist, and certified trauma therapist. And today we are going to talk about self-compassion. It is so important to have compassion for yourself, to give yourself grace, to learn how to love yourself and practice loving and accepting yourself radically, wholeheartedly, especially when you are healing from trauma. One of the main things that trauma does is change the self-concept. It changes the way that you perceive yourself. One thing that we tend to do when we experience complex trauma or interpersonal trauma is that we become very self-critical, very self-judging, very self-blaming. So today I'm going to talk to you about ways that you can begin to practice self-compassion, or things that you can actually do that will help you get to that point where you are able to be compassionate towards yourself. It takes practice. It takes being intentional in order to do this, because it doesn't come natural. What comes natural for someone who has had attachment trauma, interpersonal trauma, is the self-criticism, self-judgment, and self-blame. So the first tip I'm going to give you is to treat yourself as if you already have compassion for yourself. So what does that mean? It basically means going through the motions, doing the things that you would do if you were more kind and gentle towards yourself. So all of the self-care things, whatever you do that you find self-nurturing, self-soothing, anything that you do for self-care, do more of that, increase that. Be intentional about doing something for yourself every single day, because the more you do kind things for yourself, the more you pour into yourself, the more you're going to feel good about yourself. You're going to develop that relationship with yourself, and you will start to have self-acceptance, self-love, and self-compassion. When you think about the people in your lives that you really care about, people that really see you, okay, people that make you feel good about yourself, it's because of how they treat you. So it's the same concept. Treat yourself as if you are someone that you care about, and you will eventually have more compassion towards yourself and more self-love. The second thing I have is to start practicing some self-love and self-compassion meditations, or affirmations. You can create your own, or you can actually look up affirmations. There are plenty. YouTube has a lot of good self-love and self-compassion meditations and affirmations that you can do. I think it's really good to create your own also and be able to say them every single day, and just sit with that intention and repeat it. It gets into your subconscious, and you are retraining your brain to think differently. The reason we have that inner critic is because we were conditioned. We heard those things so many times. All of the negative, critical things about ourselves, we either heard directly, or we sort of perceived ourselves in that way based on negative treatment. So sit with these affirmations and meditate on self-love and self-compassion. Third thing that I'm going to tell you to practice is self-forgiveness. Often, especially when we have experienced trauma in relationships, even when we know we've been mistreated, abused, or whatever, we tend to blame ourselves and have a hard time forgiving ourselves. We may have a hard time forgiving that we were with that person, that we stayed with that person, that we accepted mistreatment and abuse. Even in family of origin, childhood types of situations, we may even blame ourselves for parents not showing us love the way we need it, for not being there for us. And often, kids do. They think something must be wrong with me. I am not lovable. We start to develop these negative core beliefs, which we also need to work on changing that to have more self-compassion. But work on forgiving yourself for anything that that you think you need to forgive yourself for, because perception is reality. Maybe the things that we perceive we have done wrong or we are at fault for, we need to forgive ourselves for. Even if it is not the reality, it is how we perceive it. It is what we feel intuitively. And so work on forgiving. And a big part of forgiving is self-compassion. And also getting to a place where you can change your perception and you can accurately see what happened, and accurately see who was actually at fault, and that perhaps you were the victim of mistreatment, abuse, neglect, unmet needs in some way. Another thing is paying attention to your inner dialogue, the way you talk to yourself. trying to switch from negative self-talk to positive self-talk. Notice when you're saying things like, oh, I'm so stupid, I shouldn't have done that, I can't do anything right, no wonder bad things always happen to me, I'm not worthy of anything good, I deserve to be treated, unkindly, unfairly, all of these things that we say to ourselves. Notice that, pay attention to that, and change that, even if you don't believe it in the moment. Goes back to what I said originally about going through the motions, doing the things, saying the things to yourself until you mean it. And treat yourself like you would treat someone that you love. Think about the way that you talk to yourself when you make a mistake, if you're upset with yourself. Would you talk to your child that way? Hopefully the answer is no, right? Would you talk to your loved one that way? Would you talk to your partner that way? Would you talk to your parents that way? Would you say you're so stupid for making that mistake? You can't do anything right. You're not worthy of anything better. No wonder people mistreat you. No, because you'd be able to clearly see that that is abuse. And so that's what we do to ourselves when we hold on to that inner critic, that voice that is harmful and damaging emotionally. Also, in order to have more self-compassion, you want to get to a place of radical acceptance of all feelings, okay? Often we feel things and we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel that way. The more you tell yourself that, the more difficult it's going to be to have compassion for yourself for feeling what you feel. Accept it. Okay, I am sad today. It's okay that I'm sad. There's a reason. I feel angry. I feel disappointed. It's okay that you feel that way. And one of the main reasons we have a hard time accepting all our feelings is we were not allowed to feel a wide range of human emotions, of natural human emotions as children. Most of us were not. If they were emotions that were considered difficult, unpleasant, you weren't allowed to feel that, right? You may have heard things like, what are you crying for? You don't have anything to cry about. I'll give you something to cry about. You have no reason to be angry. Why are you sad? You have a roof over your head, clothes on your back. What do you mean you're depressed? So you were sort of talked out of your feelings and also taught that those emotions are not okay. You cannot express them. If you do, it's going to be met with some kind of punishment or some criticism. And so we start to do that to ourselves. So we have to learn how to embrace all of our human emotions, all of them. There's no right, wrong, good, bad. So radical acceptance of what you feel is super important, and radical acceptance of life experiences, even the harmful ones. Acceptance does not equal approval. It doesn't mean I have to like the things that happen to me. It means I accept. I don't resist. I totally accept everything that I have experienced. So how do you get to a place of acceptance? Being intentional about that inner dialogue, reminding yourself that it is okay that I am where I am. It is okay that I feel what I feel, and accepting all parts of yourself. And also grieving. You have to grieve for yourself. You have to grieve for what you lost. You have to grieve for what you needed and didn't get. You have to grieve for all the harm that was done and how that affected you. You have to do the grief work. You have to do the healing work. And that leads me to the last tip, which is basically identifying those unresolved wounds and traumas and working on resolving that, working on healing that. And it's not that you have to be completely healed in order to have self-compassion and self-love. This is a process, and this is actually a part of the healing process. One of the things that we learn to do in trauma therapy is that we learn how to pay attention to our thoughts. We learn how to pay attention to our beliefs and what we tell ourselves. And we practice changing that. We practice changing our perception. We practice rejecting those negative beliefs that we were conditioned to believe about ourselves. So it's changing what you think, changing what you do, and doing all of that in a kind, nurturing, gentle, and positive way. And that's how we get to a place of self-compassion.